Everybody. My name is Kevin Spensley. I'm from Vermont in the northern United States, New England, and the name of my university is called St. Michael's College. And as you can see from the title and the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about financing your education in the United States. And with some specific examples for my university, St. Michael's College. And I should probably start off by saying that I don't have access to the secret of this one room where all the money is lying to pay for the education of international students and much less American students. Everyone knows that education is very expensive. It's expensive in the United States. But there are ways to lower the cost. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those ways to lower the cost and perhaps some ways to help clarify some of the myths, some of the untruths that are out there. Fake news, to use a current political term in the United States. So before I begin, I want to just make sure that everyone's clear what we're talking about. So today I am focusing mostly on on funding undergraduate education, funding the bachelor degree. Although there are many similarities between the two, between paying for graduate study and undergraduate study, and the rules that I'm going to discuss in this presentation are essentially the same for undergraduate and graduate students. There are a few clear differences, and I'll try to address them as I go along. But if there are any people out there looking for funding, of their graduate education, perhaps ask those questions and I'll answer them separately. But for now, I'm going to talk mostly about, or in my head is mostly funding for undergraduate. And before I go on, I also want to make 100% clear that the terms university and college in the United States are the same as far as I'm going to be talking. They are synonymous. Although I work at a St. Michael's College, it is the same as a university. It offers the same degree as an institution 5 kilometers down the road from me called the University of Vermont. We both offer undergraduate bachelor degree programs, and we both offer graduate programs. So I just want to make clear that I will use these words interchangeably, and unless I specify, they will mean the same thing. Now, private and public. St. Michael's College is a private university. Public university are also a term that I'm sure you're all knowledgeable about. That basically means that they are funded a lot or largely by the state in which they're located, but not all. They also require payment from both the residents of that state and certainly from international students. Over the past 10 to 15 years, I will say that many states have reduced the funding to their public institutions, which has meant that these public institutions, one of the ways they have made up those lower amounts of money that the government has given them is by recruiting international students. International students who do not pay the local tuition. For example, I live in the state of Vermont, and my children in Vermont can go to a public institution for much less money than students from different states and different countries. Because so when international students apply for public universities, they are generally required, almost always required, to pay what's called out-of-state tuition, meaning they do not come from that state, they do not live in that state, They have not paid taxes to that state all their lives, so they will pay much higher tuitions than students within that state. Private universities, there's no such thing as in-state or out-of-state tuition. It's the same cost for all students. There's whether they live, 1 kilometer away, right next door to that private college or university, or whether they live in a different country. It is one cost. Now that said, that's where up to then it was easy. However, most private universities have different policies for international students. And the most important thing, if you get nothing else from this presentation about how to fund your education, is that it's so important to talk to the universities you're interested in, to learn about what exactly are their policies with regards to scholarships or tuition discounts for international students. It's never make the mistake of saying, well, I have looked on the website. I have looked on the website of one private university, and that will be the policy for every private university. This is never the case. And it would even be a mistake to say, well, I've looked on the website and I see what their international, what their policy is with regards to scholarships or funding for international students. So I'm just going to trust everything on the website. That's rarely the case as well. Or I should say that may be the case for the very top ranked universities, the most prestigious, the brand names, the Harvard, the Stanford. But beneath these level, if you're willing to kind of change your standards a little bit and look at the private universities that are not, let's say, in the top 20 or the top 50 ranked, these kind of universities often have much more flexibility than their higher ranked sister schools. And sometimes that flexibility is not even mentioned on the website. It's important to speak or at least write someone in the admissions office. And when you speak with someone in the admissions office, don't just call the general number. Find the person or a person who is responsible for international admission or international enrollment, and write that person, or even telephone that person, or however you like to get in touch with them, and ask them about, would you tell me about your policy with regards to scholarships for international students? And I'll tell you another little secret. These universities look at anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 applications a year. So when they hear from a student who makes the call, we think of that as, this student has taken the time to call us or write us, which is me, and to look at our website carefully and to understand what we're about. Perhaps they have affinity for us. Perhaps they really, really do want to come here a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of write that in the student's record and make a note of it, that, perhaps, they really do want to come here, and they may be able to offer more money in international aid because they think that you are really here. So that they think that you are really coming. Or really truly interested in coming to this university. We all know that students apply to 5 to 10 different universities. And so a big trick of what universities are looking to find out is, how serious is this application? And when you take the effort to write us and reach out to us, we think you are more serious, and therefore we will work with you harder to make it possible for you to come here. When you're speaking with the admissions department about the possibility of international students, be honest about what you really think your family can afford. because they will be honest with you too, or they should be. They should be able to tell you, like, look, um, this is really the range of scholarships that we can offer. And if you can afford somewhere in between, let's say, $20,000 a year and $40,000 a year, then yes, it's worth applying. But if you come and say, well, I think my family could afford up to $40,000 or $45,000, they will tell you truly whether it is or not it is worth coming. And if you can be honest with them about what you can afford or the range you can afford, they will tell you then whether or not they can work with you. Because as I've said, many of their policies are not publicized or online. It is worth at least just speaking with people, especially with the universities and colleges that are a little bit lower down in the ranking. That doesn't mean that they aren't excellent colleges and universities. St. Michael's College, myself, we are ranked right now 106 in the National Liberal Arts Universities and Colleges. We are an excellent academically challenged university where 100% of our students have jobs or go to grad school after they complete their program. But I will also tell you that because we are not Harvard University, which receives 30,000 applications per year, and we are not Harvard University that has an endowment, which means we have investments that could pay for everybody's education if we needed to. We will work with you. We will do our best to make it possible for students to come here, for some amount of money. And many colleges and universities have this attitude as well. So again, speak with any universities that you are interested in, both the public ones and the private ones. And finally, ask questions. Make sure you understand the process, all the forms that are required, and the deadlines, because again, there is no one policy or one rule in the United States, not with regards to admissions policy and not with regards to scholarships. Everyone is a little bit different, and it's very important to ask questions and make sure you understand what they require. And of course, there are a lot of terms that I just want to make sure, I don't want to kind of spend a lot of time defining all of the words and the terms. I'm sure you've already, if you've started the application process or started to look at universities in the United States, you already know that there are a lot of differences between universities in Ukraine and universities in the United States or other countries. And the words are different as well. So I want to kind of list some of the main words, and if you're not, and I'll talk quickly about what they are, but certainly be aware that that these are out there, and know that you can always ask people what they mean when you are communicating with the future universities that you will apply for. So a tuition scholarship is different than a comprehensive scholarship. Tuition is the amount of money that it costs for your education, and many colleges and universities offer scholarships for tuition, but they do not offer scholarships for things like room and board. So if a university would say, yes, we will take 50% off your tuition or 10% off your tuition, just remember that you are responsible for all the other fees. Or sometimes you will hit a wonderful university that say, yes, we can give you 100% tuition scholarship. That still means that you will have to pay for room and board. So be aware of those differences. Obviously, there are different costs when you're looking at the prices of university. There's the cost of tuition, and there's the cost of room and board. The comprehensive fee, this is usually thought to be the total amount of money you will have to pay for that university. It's usually room and board plus tuition plus any fees. In the realm of scholarships, there's all kinds of different words for scholarships, discounts, but there are essentially three different kinds that you need to know of. Merit-based. Merit-based scholarship is granted based on usually how well you have done academically in high school and your background. So it may be only academics, but it may also mean things like what have been your outside activities, what kind of leadership skills that you have. Basically, it means it has nothing to do with the financial situation of the family and everything to do with you as a student and your character and how badly the university or how much the university wants you to come to their campus. That's merit-based aid. Need-based aid need-based scholarship refers to how much money your family can afford. It's usually to apply for need-based scholarships, your family and you will have to fill out a lot of forms about how much money your family earns and has access to. Now, obviously, it is much harder for American universities to verify how much money is earned by a Ukrainian family. And I would say, and so therefore I would say that fewer universities offer need-based aid to international students, but certainly it is worth asking about. And you just need to know that it requires a lot of filling out of forms by you and your family sometimes. It's certainly worth asking about. And then a third kind of important scholarship that a lot of universities offer are athletic scholarships. These are for students who will compete in the for the college against other colleges and universities. These are usually granted to very good athletes. And every university, again, has different policies and different rules about granting of athletic scholarships. Sometimes they can be for all the money required to attend the university, but the disadvantage is that they may, if suddenly a student decides to stop playing that sport, or for whatever reason they're injured or have been cut from the team or told they can no longer play for the team, they may lose that athletic scholarship. So it's very important if you are an athlete and you believe that you would like to play a sport competitively for that university, again, it's worth asking very specific questions to that particular university or coach. Another word that's important to know about are loans. Loans are difficult for international students to have, I will just say quickly. But it's basically you borrow money for your education, obviously, and you pay it back over a number of years. Work study is a word that you may hear. It's basically, can you work while you're on campus? And I will talk more about the advantages and disadvantages and possibility of working when you're on campus to fund your education. Of course, there's something called the I-20. This is the form that the university sends you that enables you to apply for an education visa. And in order for anybody to receive this I-20 form, you must show that you have the right amount of money to pay for your education. And the university will tell you they will tell you the so-called I-20 amount. And this is the amount of money that you must show in a given year that you can have access to that education. And I will show you what that means later on. And then financial certification, of course, it basically is the means by which families prove they have the funds to pay for a year of education. So we'll move forward from there. And as an example I want to show you what an example of what a international student scholarship possibility might be. So St. Michael's College, I happen to know this university better than any others, and I will tell you that St. Michael's offers all international students are eligible for scholarships, and our merit-based scholarships, meaning our scholarships are based on you, the student, on your application, and how much we want you to attend. So we don't really look at your family's need, or we don't take that into account, into your specific family's need. But we will offer as much merit-based aid as we can in order for you to attend, usually up to 50% of tuition. And this that is what so that still means that families would have to pay something. I will tell you that in our case, there is no special application required to apply for scholarships, and about 90% of all of our international students receive them. And as I say, there's nothing special they do. We grant them automatically. Every student is required for them, but it doesn't hurt to tell us that you are looking for a scholarship and you would need a scholarship to attend St. Michael's College. And I will also tell you that once you have a scholarship, it is renewed each year automatically. You do not have to reapply. So that is another question that you should ask universities about their scholarship policy. Is like, if I get the scholarship first year, will I have to apply for it again the second year? I want to talk a little bit more about the financial certification that is required. This, again, we talked about it earlier, but this is proof that your family can afford to go to St. Michael's College, and it usually, at some point, you will need to provide your family with a bank letter and bank document showing that you have the funds, and a letter of support, basically saying, if someone else is paying for your education, like a family, like a relative or a close friend or an employer, we would require a letter, or most universities would require a letter from that family or foundation or employer that you will indeed support the student. So this is what it might look like. This is what you kind of need to understand. This is the information you will one day receive from a university. This is to understand how much you will have to pay and whether or not you can get it. The tuition and the room and board and the activity fees, the subtotal is $57,595. If you receive a scholarship of up to $22,000, this is the comprehensive fee that you would owe. And the I-20 is a little bit higher, because the U.S. government, before it grants you a visa, wants to know that you can also, pay for your books and your other kind of miscellaneous expenses. So it's difficult, and I will talk about one route to lowering. It's not cheap to go to college. Certainly, some universities have lower tuition than St. Michael's do, and I encourage you to find those lower tuitions, and some will be more generous in their scholarship amounts, and some will be less generous. But you will only really know by speaking with that particular university about their policies. So, but one route that is worth considering and worth thinking about for lowering the cost over 4 years, and this is what we call the community college route. Now, I know I said at the beginning of the presentation that college and university mean the same thing, and that's true, except when the word college has the word community college before it. A community college is generally, it's a 2-year institution. It's popular for older students who want to receive training in special courses. But of late, they have also become they are also well known to be much less expensive than universities. And what is happening, what is possible in the United States is it is possible to spend 2 years at a community college, which is likely to cost way less than universities, far, far less. Like, like sometimes just one or two or $3,000 a year for some universities. So you can attend 2 years at this community college, receive something that is called an associate degree, and then transfer from that community college into a 4-year university. So you can see and receive a great ability to save money in that way. Now, this would require some work. It will require, after 2 years, obviously, to change universities. It requires at some point to apply for the 4-year university while you are studying at the community college. Now, the good news is that many community colleges have partnerships with 4-year universities, so that it's much easier for a student to transfer from a community college to a 4-year university. And again, the only way to know for sure whether or not this is a possibility is like when you seek, when you research community colleges, ask them, what partnerships do you have for transferring to 4-year colleges, and what are they? And sometimes they will say, yes, we have agreements with all these universities, and they will give you a list of all the universities, and they will say, these are the requirements. You must have a grade point average of 3.0 with no failing classes. And if you have that, you will be admitted automatically into this university and this university and this university. And sometimes they have an agreement where you don't even have to apply for the new university. You just indicate your desire to transfer over. And sometimes the universities have guaranteed scholarships for students from that community college. And the good news is that community college that have relationships and partnerships like that, their counselors, the people who work at those community colleges, will be able to tell you all about that once you arrive, and they will make everything clear for you, and they will even make sure that you do everything that is needed to apply for that 4-year university after 2 years, and make sure that all your credit, all the classes that you took at the community college are transferred towards the degree at the new university. But again, the only way to know this again is to speak with the community colleges individually. I will quickly tell you that some of the states that have the best community college transfer policies are California and Washington State. These a little bit Massachusetts as well, and Texas. So this is where you can begin looking for suitable community colleges if you wish to save a lot of money on in that way. Working. A lot of students I meet with say, well, can't I just work when I'm on campus, when I'm studying at the university, in order to pay for my education? And the answer is yes, you can, but you will almost definitely not make enough money working to pay very much for your education. And these are some of the obstacles to that. First of all, you have to find if there are on-campus jobs available at the university at which you want to attend. Sometimes there are, and sometimes there are not. Again, a question you have to ask. The other challenge is that your on-campus jobs are rarely going to pay you more than $2,000, maybe $3,000 a year. So this is the amount of money that it costs for books and pocket money. Not going to make a big dent or make a great contribution to your undergraduate program. A third challenge is that you're like, well, okay, I could work off campus then and make a lot of money. And it's like, well, there are restrictions on your visa. First of all, on an F1 visa, you are absolutely required to study full-time. Studying full-time usually means 12 credits a semester. And if you study less of that time in order to take your job or to work, you will lose your visa status. The second visa restriction is that there are actually limitations on the number of hours that you can work per week. And I believe that limitation is 20 hours. So there's not, even if you're making $10 or $15 an hour, $20 20 hours a week, which you can do the math and realize you're not going to be earning a lot of money. And I will tell you that usually it's more realistic to work perhaps 10 hours a week, given your course load. And this is just the US policy. The visa policy is that student visas are designed for students to study, and the belief and that students should be spending almost all of their time studying and not working. Now, it is possible to work during the summers on your education visa, or it is even possible to, or it is possible to work more than 20, it is possible to work off of campus during your education program. This is called curricular practical training, and you can certainly do that during the summers, and you must apply for special permission to do that once you arrive on campus at the university, and you can do that. But again, working full-time may or may not make a significant dent on your tuition bill. And it's not something that you can count on before you arrive. So you're still going to have to prove that your family can afford, or you can afford to pay for your education before you arrive. And you cannot count off-campus employment before then. There is also something called optional practical training. After your program ends, you are allowed to work for up to 1 year in the United States, wherever you want. And if you study in a STEM subject, that's science, technology, engineering, or math, you are allowed to work in the United States for up to 3 years. And but this again does not help you afford your money, your education as you need it. It's money after you work, after you complete your educational program. Now, there are public scholarships. Certainly there are, wonderful organizations out there that will pay for your education. And one of the best public resources for this that I know of is one that you already know very well, Education USA, the organization that brought us together this evening. They are certainly have resources as well. There are also multiple resources online that will help you find. And I'm not going to, I've got a few that are right here. I'm not going to, list all of them. I encourage a simple Google search that says scholarships for international students or funding your education, and you will find a list of scholarships. And as I have done this, it's tough. There are a lot of requirements. They may be very competitive. There are a lot of fine print about which students are eligible, but certainly there are some resources out there, but not a lot. But they may be worth a look at some of them. We talked about loans. Unfortunately, in the United States, the United States government does offer loans, but in order to be eligible, you have to be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. resident. It is possible for international students to take out loans in the United States, but they must be guaranteed by someone who lives there, either a citizen or a permanent resident. And if you are lucky enough to be in that position, that's fantastic. But it's not a lot of international students have the ability to use loans to finance their education. Every country or some countries offer their students loans. I put a question mark there because I honestly don't know the situation in Ukraine, whether there is a Ukrainian government program that will offer loans to pay for students to study. I suspect that you and Education USA in Kiev will know more about this than I do. Now, in your search, depending on how you are looking for universities or how you are deciding, you may very well come across companies, organizations, and agents, consultants who may promise you and offer you, tell you that they can guarantee you scholarships, or they have a wonderful network of colleges and universities they work with that they can make it much easier for you to get a scholarship. And that may be true. I want to say that some of these companies and organizations may indeed be legitimate, and they may indeed have special relationships with colleges or universities that are more likely to offer scholarships than others. But you have to be careful with these companies. They are making money somewhere. Either the college or university is paying them to recruit students for your university, or they're going to ask you for money. They may say, well, we want a percentage of your scholarship that you ultimately receive. And that's something that you can decide if that's worthwhile or not for you. They're earning money somewhere. There are a lot of scams out there. You may know this, or you may not, but I assure you they are. Be careful. I would say don't enter into these relationships carefully, and look for what we call red flags. A red flag, if you're familiar with the term, means when a red flag goes up, you don't proceed any further. When a red flag goes up in a car, in an automobile, for example, you slow down, or you even stop and turn around because it's too dangerous to go forward. So red flags in this area of companies that promise scholarships are things like, if they ask for money up front, don't do that. Do they make guarantees that they're going to be able to get you a scholarship no matter what? 100% guarantee. Well, that's, they can't make that guarantee, because ultimately every admission decision and every scholarship decision is made by colleges and universities. Don't believe them who say that they have the ability to make decisions for that college or that university. And again, ask questions. You ask for physical addresses, ask for the names of colleges and universities with which they have these relationships. And if they don't answer these questions, or they're unwilling to, or they give unclear answers, turn around. I would say, they're probably not as legitimate as they say they are. Any honest company should not have a problem offering you that information. The general rule in these kind of offers and ideas that has served me well anyways in my life is that if the deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It's probably a way to separate you from your money, and not necessarily, and they do not have your best interest at heart. So some of these companies and agents may be legitimate. Sorry about that. But a lot of them may not, and I urge you to work carefully. So this is my presentation, and I hope that you didn't come to this thinking that I was going to tell you where all of the money is available for international studies. The fact is, right now in the United States, some universities do offer. I think the best place to find scholarships and money is with the individual universities and colleges, and some will offer you ways to do that. Some universities have very nice scholarship packages. Others have have very nice relationships with community colleges, or allow you to complete your degree in 3 years instead of 4 years, and that will lower money. It's important to ask the colleges and universities about these things. In general, the lower you get in your ranking of colleges and universities that you're looking for, the more they may be willing to negotiate with you, to give you more money than they may have published on the website, or the more money than they may have offered you the first time. If a university offers you a scholarship, I think that's wonderful. Congratulations. But also know that it is possible. You can always go back and say, well, can I, I can't quite afford $30,000, but I might be able to afford $25,000. And you can certainly ask. It never hurts to ask at that stage, even after you've been admitted. Education for many universities has become something, the cost of education has become something more negotiable. And the negotiating and the discussion works best when it happens early on before you start your search, but it can continue on after you've been admitted. So thank you very much. I hope this was a little bit helpful for you. Hello?
So, no questions as far as I see.
Okay.
Okay, then I think we can wrap up. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for your active participation. We greatly appreciate. Yes, please stay in touch. And in case you have questions, you can always email us, Education USA, or Kevin directly. Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
I see some questions. Like what
It's
kind
just
of,
thank you. It's just thank you.
no, well, like what kind of scholarships are of the comprehensive type? No?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Please go ahead if you would like to elaborate on that. But generally speaking, yeah, maybe you can provide your view on what amount of those scholarships are of comprehensive type.
Yeah, usually these are athletic scholarships, meaning that will pay for 100% of your tuition, or athletic types. Some universities and colleges do offer 100% scholarships where everything is paid for. These are generally for the highest, most academically advanced students, the most academically successful, or the most, or in whatever field. So there are some universities and colleges that offer these, and these will generally be, this is up to every individual university. So they exist. They are out there, but they are also very competitive. And questions you can ask universities and colleges is, do you offer any full scholarships for students from Ukraine, from my particular country? And you can even say, from students from Ukraine in the subject that I want to study, be as specific as possible. And some of them, you never know, may be able to say, yes, we do that. And some will not.
Just to elaborate on that, do you think that the majority of those would be private universities? Speaking of undergraduate scholarships.
Yeah, both ways. Some will be private universities, and they tend to be the most well endowed. That is the wealthiest private universities, the ones that are higher in the rankings as well. But there are public universities that offer them as well. I have heard, for example, there is a university, the SUNY Buffalo. I know, for example, they have a program in Kenya. This is not helpful, I don't think, for anybody in this audience. But I know that they offer something like 10 full scholarships for students from Kenya. And this is because that university has been working in Kenya. It has some research programs in Kenya, and they just are working very hard to establish ties with Kenya. There's unfortunately there's no hard and fast rule about that. But again, the question that you can ask universities are: do you have, special scholarships for students from Ukraine of this major? And they should answer you quickly, or if they don't answer you, they will. That probably means they probably don't. But they exist. They are out there. You might want to look and call it in regions where there are a lot of Ukrainians, in the diaspora, because sometimes the universities are working with a local business that has activity or business in Ukraine. So parts of the country where there are a lot of Ukrainians or more Ukrainians tend to be the Midwest, Illinois, Minnesota, wherever the Ukrainian diaspora exists. But again, this is, they can be competitive, and you can imagine if one person finds out about this scholarship, a lot of other people will find out about it too.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. We greatly appreciate your time and involvement. Thank you for many interesting ideas and tips. And warmest regards from Kiev. Have a great and happy new year. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Well, we will wrap up now. Thank you so much.